Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Career Choice Series webinar on patent law. The Career Choice Series is designed to help you choose your career path. Whether you're a law student, young lawyer, or transitioning attorney, find out what it's like to work in various practice areas and the best way to position yourself to get there. The Career Choice Series is brought to you today by ABA Legal Career Central, Law Student Division, Young Lawyers Division, and the section of Intellectual Property Law. The ABA section of intellectual property law advances the development of intellectual property laws and their fair and just administration. As the forum for rich perspectives and balanced insight on the full spectrum of IP law, the section serves as the ABA voice within the profession, before policymakers, and with the public. The Young Lawyers Division is here to help new lawyers navigate the early years of their career and law students prepare for life after law school. The Law Student Division offers premium benefits, which includes a savings of $250 on Barbary Bar Review, $25 off West Academic Casebooks, and a legal ethics bundle that includes a free Model Rules of Professional Conduct ebook. Upgrade to premium for $25. Sign up today at abaforlawstudents.com/go premium. ABA Legal Career Central is a career center that offers both career development resources and a job board for law students, lawyers, and other legal professionals across all disciplines and career stages. Today's moderator is Skip Horn. Skip has a long and distinguished career in university administration with an emphasis in legal education. He currently serves as a Senior Assistant Dean for External Relations at Santa Clara Law. Previously, he was the Global Recruiting Manager for Latham & Watkins, President of NALP, and President of the National LGBT Bar Foundation. He is a board member of ABA Legal Career Central. Skip, thanks so much for being here. I will turn it over to you.
Thanks, Emily. As she said, my name is Skip Horn, and I am the Senior Assistant Dean for External Relations at Santa Clara University School of Law, located in the heart of Silicon Valley here in California. We're joined today by two active members of the ABA section of intellectual property law who will be sharing their insights about careers in patent law. Please welcome Stephanie Roberts in Washington, D.C., and George Jordan in Houston, Texas. So Stephanie, let's start with you. Why don't you introduce yourself and give us a brief overview of your practice?
Hi, I'm Stephanie Roberts. I'm an associate at Steptoe and Johnson. I've been part of the ABA for the past 9 years, and my practice focuses mostly on Section 337 litigation, and I also litigate in district courts and the federal circuit. I do a little bit of patent prosecution, but my major focus is on litigation in the International Trade Commission.
Great. And where was law school for you?
Law school was John Marshall in Chicago.
Okay. And you have a degree in engineering, mechanical?
Yeah, mechanical.
Okay. And George, you've taken a slightly different path. Why don't you tell us a little bit about you and your practice areas?
Sure. I'm senior counsel with Norton Rose Fulbright. I have been involved with the ABA for about 15 years now. My patent practice focuses on both litigation and investigations. Litigation is often in district court, whether California, Texas, or Delaware, for example, and those involve patent infringement and validity issues. But also, I have some quasi-litigation matters before the patent office involving patentability issues. And, like district court litigation, there'll be experts, depositions, hearing, though without live testimony. And instead of one judge, you would have a panel of 3 judges that are patent lawyers with technical backgrounds. And then in terms of the investigations, just to give you some examples, it could be a client is concerned about infringing a patent, or a client is considering actually acquiring some patents from another company and wants me to first evaluate the strength of those patents from an infringement and a validity standpoint. Both types of matters do tend to involve wireless, semiconductor, e-commerce type of technologies.
And George, you are an electrical engineer by training, is that right?
Yes, I obtained that degree from Duke, and my law degree from the University of Texas in Austin.
Okay. I know we have a number of law students joining us today interested in pursuing a career in patent law, and that means a lot of different things to a lot of people. George, let's stick with you for a minute. Can you tell us a little bit about your career path? How did you get where you are now, and what are the keys for anyone looking to get into patent law? What are the keys to breaking into that as a career path?
Sure. I think for me and getting on that path, to a large extent, it was the right timing, the right engineering degree, and then the right technical knowledge. Was in the law school class in '96, and the IP legal market was really hot at the time. I interviewed with a Houston-based IP law firm at a job fair, and um, they had a partner with an electrical engineering degree who was actually leaving the firm to go in-house at Compaq Computer, which, at the time was this leading laptop computer manufacturer. And so the firm really expected to have a significant amount of patent prosecution work directed to computer-related inventions. And fortunately, I had taken a number of computer design and programming classes in college, and kind of felt like I had got in on the ground floor because, growing up as a teenager, I had bought a Commodore VIC-20, which was their first home computer that came out in 1980. And so having that experience really paid off in getting my foot in the door, and I went ahead and took the initiative of actually auditing a class in law school that focused on drafting patent applications to get ready for that.
Great. So, Stephanie, did you take a similar path, or how did you break into this field?
Mine was different. This is my second career. I worked as an engineer for 10 years before going to law school. I worked in semiconductor manufacturing and then aerospace on the space shuttle for a couple years. So I guess at the time it was just, I had always thought about going to law school, and then it was a good time in my life. I wanted a change in career and talked to one of my friends who had taken a similar path that I had gone to school with this person in undergrad, and then he was a patent attorney, so I talked to him about it and decided this is what I wanted to do. So I guess in my 30s decided to go back to law school and get a law degree, and then my background has paid off. I think one of the keys is who you know and contacts to get you in, because the legal market is not quite as great as it was when George joined, but there still are opportunities if you have the technical background for patent law, but you really need to know people. It's helpful to get in with people you know.
Well, Stephanie, you just mentioned something, and I'll throw this quickly out to both of you that I know a lot of our listeners are wondering about. Do I need a technical degree to have a successful career in patent law? Because both of you do, but I know there are other areas where you don't necessarily have to have the degrees.
For patent law, I think you do right now.
Okay.
It didn't used to be the case where you could go in with more of just a general litigation background and do patent law, but given the market and it's a lot more competitive, they are looking for people with a technical background. You can still do copyright, trademarks, but I think those jobs are a little bit, I guess there are fewer of those, but you don't need the technical background for that.
And George, would you agree?
I do agree with that. I think it gives you the flexibility to not only do patent litigation, but to do patent prosecution as well, having that technical background. And I think you're better able to work with experts having that sort of background.
Great. So Stephanie, what does your day look like? Is there a typical day, or is every day a little bit different? And give us a little sense of how you spend your time.
For me, every day is different. Since most of my practice is litigation, I think, each day could be focusing on something different, and it depends on what stage the case or the cases that I'm working on, because I'm usually working on more than one case. But you could be writing briefs, you could be, preparing, responding to discovery, preparing for trial, meeting with opposing counsel. So each day is different, and I think that's one of the things that's good about litigation, because you're always challenging yourself.
So what, for example, have you done today already? You've had your morning in Washington, D.C., and then you have, I'm sure, some time after this call. What are some things on your to-do list?
So today I had to write a letter. We filed a complaint last week in the ITC, and so we had to write a letter providing some additional clarification for the staff attorney that's reviewing it. So we filed that this morning. Today this afternoon I'm working on a brief and also some discovery issues in another case.
Okay. And George, does your day look the same, or is it completely different?
Every day is different, though I'd say that each day is a mix of drafting, analysis, and presentation work. The drafting often would include motions, expert reports, discovery responses, and requests, and I want to add claim charts because that's something that's unique to patent practice. You have these very detailed and technical charts for comparing the claims of a patent to a product or a publication, either to show infringement or invalidity. My analysis work includes a lot of those charts as well, patents and naturally my client's documents, the other side's documents. And then in terms of just the presentation work, I'd say the audiences tend to be either the court, opposing counsel, or a joint defense group. And in terms of a joint defense group, often when a plaintiff has sued a number of defendants asserting they infringe the very same patent, it's pretty common for those defendants to form a joint defense group to be able to share privileged communications as part of defending against the patent.
So, George, if we were at an event or we were walking down the street and somebody stopped you and said, "Hey, George, what do you love about your job?" How do you think you'd answer that? And then, of course, the flip side to that question is, what are some things that really keep you up late at night?
One thing I love about my job is the opportunity to be able to help manage pretty large teams in high stakes matters. And I'd say over the course of my career, I've probably worked on a half dozen or so matters where there were billions at stake. And maybe I'm just kind of a magnet for those sort of matters, but it is exciting, though intense. In terms of what I don't like or hate about my practice, I know hate is such a strong word, but I would just say it's probably less than ideal that many of my vacations are rarely 100% vacations. Sometimes they're more like 80% vacations. Everyone on the team tends to be busy. Your deadlines don't disappear, and people are counting on you. So you do what you have to do.
And Stephanie, how about you?
So I think one of the things I enjoy about this job is it's always challenging. You're learning different skills, whether it be management, whether it be technical skills, but it's always something different. So it keeps you engaged. It's definitely hard work. And as George mentioned, one of the things that's hard, I think, about this job, especially doing litigation, is you can't predict your schedule. It's not 9 to 5. And yes, you'll likely be working on vacations and or canceling a vacation here and there. And, dealing with different personalities is often challenging, whether it be opposing counsel or people in your own group, just trying to make sure everybody's working well together.
So we're getting a couple of questions. I thought I'd throw this out to both of you about compensation. So is there some truth to the myth that patent attorneys make more money than other attorneys? But generally, how is this field compensated? Is it pretty much lockstep if you're in a large firm, like most other attorney positions? I imagine it would be different if you're working for a government agency or something like that.
Yeah, so I think for large firms, I don't know that it is true that being in the patent practice that you will be paid more. I think in smaller firms that could happen. And back when I started practicing, it was definitely the case. Being a patent lawyer, you were able to make more.
Stephanie, what have you seen?
Yeah, I think, I worked at a smaller firm before this, before Steptoe. I worked at a boutique, but it was IP only. So we were all paid the same, but it wasn't the same amount that I get paid at Steptoe, because Steptoe is a big firm, so it's fairly lockstep in what you're going to get paid.
Okay. So I know we have a lot of people listening who are considering careers in patent law. So what would be the top 3 skills that you would suggest that someone needs? If you were talking to someone in law school, for example, today, what would you tell that person to be working on? What skills should they be developing to be successful in this area? And Stephanie, let's start with you.
So my big ones are attention to detail. I think that's very important, and I feel like that's lacking in a lot of people. You need to be able to, have mostly error-free work. Obviously, you're going to make mistakes, things will happen, but you want to have the best work product, and that means you need to pay attention to detail. I think also work ethic, which, might sound silly, but you're going to work hard, especially if you're doing patent litigation, and you're going to spend a lot of time at the office. You need to work hard, you need to get your stuff done, and you can't leave your team hanging and, make them cover for you. The last one, I think, is good communication skills. You need to be able to communicate orally and in writing and effectively communicate your thoughts.
So for those still in law school, what are a couple of things that students could be doing to hone these skills, their good communication skills, their work ethic, attention to detail? Anything come to mind?
For communication skills, I know during law school we had mock trials. I think those are good things to, get up on your feet, and you have to think on your feet, and that's one of the skills, I think, for a litigator. So participate in as many of those things as possible. I mean, work ethic, I think, just comes, you have to have that and make sure you're working hard and doing the work that's required of you without someone saying at all times, you need to be doing this, you need to stay till X time, you just need to be able to take that initiative on your own. And the attention to detail, I think, is really just, making sure you're reviewing your work in detail and, catching the mistakes that you've made.
Okay. And George, would your top 3 skills be the same?
I agree with those 3, but I'd like to add a few more.
Sure.
Number 1, I think is really important to be able to play well with others outside your company. Every one of my current matters requires working really closely with other law firms, and sometimes those law firms are representing the same client. Other times they're representing companies whose interests are aligned with my client. But either way, I'd say it's a really valuable skill, being able to work well with those outside your company. My second one would be a willingness to adapt. And I say that because, patent law develops pretty frequently and often in big ways. And the Supreme Court is not shy about taking patent cases. And often there's a proposed patent bill before Congress, and PTO regularly issues new guidance for examiners. And of course, we have district courts that introduce and revise their local patent rules and standing orders. So it really is an evolving practice, and it's important to be able to adapt. My third one, part of being a patent lawyer is working with persons with PhDs, and they could be inventors, experts, or your coworkers even, right? So I'd say that I think it's a good skill to be confident and be inquisitive, so that you can stand out and hold your own in that crowd.
So again, George, for those law students who might be listening, what are some things they could be doing in law school to as you said, work more with clients, make sure that that's a skill you have, be adaptable as things change, and then working with folks with technical degrees, or as they say, people who you might think are smarter than you are.
That's right. I think one thing that's really helpful is to be able to show that you've taken on leader positions and been able to adapt to the challenges that come with having that role. And maybe it's a leadership position in the IP society at your law school. That's one example. And I think staying active, before law school, maybe you were active in a technical association in a particular industry, and continuing to be involved in that way to show you're still having that interaction with those with PhD backgrounds would be great as well.
Great. So what do you think people would be most surprised to know about practicing patent law? George, let's start with you.
Yeah. And this might be something that is probably more typical of maybe larger firms or larger matters, but one thing that might surprise you is work pretty closely with document review lawyers. And I mean, just this year and last year alone, I've spent a great deal of time at document review facilities, training, supervising, and working alongside document review lawyers. And I think what it comes down to is that clients are appreciating the huge importance and the cost sensitivity of document review, and they see the value of having the document review lawyers do that first level review once they've gotten the training, and then you can have lawyers practicing within a firm be able to do that second level or that third level type of review to get to the best work product.
And Stephanie, what do you think people would be surprised about?
Oh, I think you're going to end up working in a lot of different technologies. You might have a background, like my background is mechanical engineering by training, and then I worked in semiconductor and I did aerospace, but I've worked on a lot of different technologies. I have done some semiconductor, I've worked on printers, automobiles, keyboard support systems. I've written patents on hairbrushes, bottle caps, coolers. So you just get exposed to a wide range of technologies that may or may not be, directly related to your background. I think one of the other things that you have to learn is, even if you are, one of the experts on the technology, you're going to have to be able to effectively communicate that to people who don't have the same background as you and may have no technical background, especially if you're presenting to a jury in district court.
Another quick career question before we start to wrap up. For those that have already graduated law school, maybe they're already practicing, is it an easy field to break into? And once you're in, is it easy to move around? For example, you hear people talk about litigation versus prosecution. Can you go back and forth? How flexible is this as a career field, especially for someone already out of law school and maybe even with some practice experience, maybe in a totally different area? Stephanie?
I think if you have the technical background, it'll be easy to get in. I mean, I think it's much, much harder if you don't have a technical background. Then you probably want to try to get into it at the firm that you're working at, see if you can, volunteer on get staffed on a IP case. But as far as moving around, I think, when you're junior, as long as you have the technical background, you're getting the relevant skills, you're getting to do, briefing, and you're getting substantive litigation skills, maybe even, to take witnesses or stand up in court and make an argument, then it seems really easy to move around laterally. But it gets harder the more senior that you are, unless you have business.
Yeah, I agree with all that, and I would add that for patent prosecution, I think it's really helpful to get that experience when you're first starting out. There really is a learning curve, and it's great to do that while you have a low billing rate rather than waiting later to try to move into that particular area. And then I think the other thing I wanted to add in is that even for those who from the very beginning and throughout their practice really tend to focus on patent prosecution, the drafting of patent applications, that there still tend to be some opportunities to add some support to litigation matters as well.
So thank you both. We're all here today because of our involvement with the ABA. So how has your involvement with this particular section really helped your career? George, let's start with you. I know you've been involved for quite a long time.
Sure. Yeah, I think first of all, it enables me to better represent my clients. One of my current clients is someone I, got to know for about 10 years or so, just working together in the ABA beforehand, and so I had the chance to really listen and gain insight into how she thinks and approaches problems, and that's helped me to keep a satisfied client today. And then another example I like to mention is that a couple of my ABA colleagues have wound up on the opposite side of me in litigation, and I think that's been a good edge to have, knowing them through the ABA, and being able to best represent my client in those matters. And I think my final point on this is that the leadership opportunities in the ABA are just huge, and that's been a really boost in giving me opportunities to lead my work projects. When I started out, I joined a committee and volunteered to be a subcommittee chair, and before long was committee chair, and had volunteered to serve on editorial board, and soon after that was chairing the board, and after being elected as a council member, went on to be an officer, and it was probably 3 officer positions before was nominated and stepped into my current position, which is vice chair. So opportunities are great.
And Stephanie?
So I've had, some of the similar things that Georgia said, but other things that I'd like to add is, I think the ABA is great for just networking, increasing your contacts, and, meeting people at other firms, meeting people at in-house, that work in-house, and, just really expanding your network, I think, is a good thing. The ABA has also been very good for opportunities like speaking opportunities, writing opportunities. There's also the leadership opportunities that George discussed. And, there's been a lot of times that, I've written for the Landslide magazine, I've presented at webinars, and also presented at on panels, in-person panels. So it's a great opportunity and to get your name out there.
Great. Well, we only have time for maybe 1 or 2 quick questions from our participants. One is something I know a lot of law students ponder, and also those who have maybe gone through law school and are practicing or thinking about retooling themselves. Do you all have any opinions on whether or not it's a good an advantage to get an LLM in intellectual property or some other related field?
I don't know if I see the benefit of it in IP if you have the technical background. I don't think that it's going to help you. But
Okay.
George
And
may
George?
have a different view on that.
No, I totally agree with that, and yeah, I can only think of kind of one colleague over the years who took that route. So yeah, totally agree.
And for anyone, law student, attorney, anyone out there who wants to keep up with the latest trends, topics in the area of patent law, how would you recommend they do that? What are some go-to websites or resources where the average person can keep on top of what are the cutting-edge issues in patent law? George?
I think, oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, I think the IP section really has some great resources there. Our magazine that comes out, that Landslide magazine Stephanie mentioned, 6 times a year, really can't find a better way to keep up with things. So that would certainly be at the top of the list. And I think there are a lot of opportunities, within your own communities also to catch some of the more regional CLE events, and I think that helps a lot. I recently, on behalf of the ABA, was part of a panel at the University of Houston, talking about IP careers, and I think those are don't miss events as well. So keep those in mind.
And Stephanie, anything to add?
The only thing that I would add outside of the ABA, because obviously the ABA has a lot of resources, but one of the things would be keeping up with the Federal Circuit cases, and you can, look at the recent opinions on the Federal Circuit website.
Great. Well, thanks to both of you, Stephanie and George. Emily, I'm going to turn it back over to you right now.
Great. Thank you, Skip, for moderating. And Stephanie and George, thanks for sharing your career paths and all that insight on what it's like to be a patent lawyer. Thank you all today for attending today's webinar. Be sure to check out our website, which is at ambar.org/careers for upcoming free career-related articles and webinars. Our next Career Advice Series webinar is on your screen now. We also have one coming up in June that should be set up by next week, so you can check back on our website then. You can search for jobs at ambar.org/jobs, and you can follow us on social media. And you can also learn about our Career Center board on our About page. Before leaving, please complete our short survey. Thanks again for joining us, and have a great day.